Hello, and welcome to the new year. Glad to have you over. I know, the actual holiday was a handful of weeks ago, but I definitely have some bubbly I was saving just for you for your next visit. Not that you needed to come over here for New Year. I assume you've been busy with the holidays just a little bit. I have had to do just so many things around the solstice this year. Last year? Whatever last month was. However, it's 2022 now, and Happy New Year. I do hope it's better than the last 2 years where, fingers crossed, knock on wood. All being said, though, I'm excited for this year. Truth be told, I'm making a resolution. I usually like to say, why wait for the New Year's resolution when you could start something new at any point in time, but I've been not as productive on this goal as you might think, so I might as well start now. You know, yeah, I'll talk about it. This year, I hope to... how should I word this? I hope to come into contact with something older or more ancient, powerful. I'm going to find at least one of the spirits, deities, what have you, of the magical world this year, and I swear by it. And not just like a figurehead of some major religion or an idealized deity in any New Age movement or any assorted god from a pantheon from any assorted pantheon, but I'm gonna find something older and more powerful. Something cursed? I'm talking too much. What's your resolution, if you don't mind me asking? Really? And how are you going to do that? Yes, I did watch Dora the Explorer back in the day. Why do you ask? You're right, there's bubbly to pop. Tonight's story is going to be a Scottish legend. A haunted house and its 80,000 spirits. I'll get to that in a sec. But I actually wanted to do something special for this evening. Not only are we going to be tackling a ghost in Scotland, we're going to be tackling a ghost of a Headless Horseman. And I don't want to do that without going into the backstory of the Headless Horseman legend itself. For while the ghost in Scotland may or may not be real, the legend that, well, Washington Irving immortalized in his little short story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, is very interesting and I think worth talking about. Tonight, I'm going to introduce you to the Headless Horseman and his many friends at the House of Dunn. Welcome to the foxhole and Foxxo Esoterica. I promise I was sober when I wrote this. Welcome back to Foxxo Esoterica, the paranormal comedy podcast that, I'm happy to say, has endured into 2022. So sorry if my slight hiatus made you think that it wouldn't be the case. I'm your host, Forsetti Fox, the fox witch who is going to refrain from doing any fortune-telling this year. It's just not worth knowing anymore. I'm not risking anything this time. Tonight's episode is a decidedly weird one, because for this episode, I will not only be tackling the Scottish legend of the Headless Horseman at the House of Dunn, I will also be recording out of Scotland itself. Zuma and I will be joined by a close fur friend and gracious host, Zippo the Tiger, this evening. He was fantastic enough to have us over for Hogmanay, the Scottish New Year celebration, and I would be remiss if I didn't give him the opportunity to come on the show. And we'll get to that shortly, but first I need to tackle some housekeeping. The title of this episode is kind of confusing. I'm going to be talking about both the Headless Horseman legend, just in general, and then a specific haunted house in Scotland where a Headless Horseman is. Also, life updates. So, the reason I was a bit on hiatus this month is mostly the fact that I've been dealing with a weird multi-country move. I'm actually really lucky to have had Zuma plan this trip because my German travel visa expired at the very start of January. Parentheses, we thought we'd be married at this point and that we'd have our marriage visa, but that process was a bureaucratic nightmare, end parentheses. And being able to stay in Scotland for a sec is an absolute boon, because otherwise I'd have needed to fly back to the US during the holiday season, and I could at least wait a little bit here for the airline prices to recede and stuff. It is true, I will be heading back to the States for the foreseeable future, and I think I mentioned last episode that Zuma and I will be apart for a sec because of the visa stuff, but worry not. We're going to figure something out soon. In the meantime, I can actually have a job. I don't need a visa in the US to do that. Woo! Thanks again, though, to Zipeau for helping me avoid a nightmare of an airline situation and travel in general. I like this buffer, and I've had a fantastic time visiting. You'll hear from him soon. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that I did actually end up recording a couple episodes in December, but the audio on the episode I was planning on making got a bit messed up on my guest's end, so I was unable to get that to work on top of the moving stuff. It was a little bit of a back burner situation. Hopefully, I'll have the audio to that episode eventually, and in that case, I'll put out a bonus and decidedly Christmassy episode, if I can figure that out. Enough of me rambling, though. We have casts to pod. Yeah, the music ended a while ago. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another riveting episode of Foxxo Esoterica. Woo! I have two guests with me this evening. One of them you've heard before, you've loved before. Perhaps even some of you have lusted over before. It's Zuma the Puma!
Hi, everyone.
That was a normal and organic bit. However, both Zuma and I have a third guest this evening. I also just cut you off. I'm so sorry.
You sure did, sweetie.
Love you.
Great hosting right there.
We're married soon, but not yet.
Yeah, it's soon to be. It's like a to be announced. It's like done when it's done.
Yeah, you remember Cyberpunk?
Right no, not like Cyberpunk.
Wait, yeah, you're right.
Like,
that came out way too
more
soon.
More like Elite Dangerous.
That one.
Yeah, it's like not Elite Dangerous. The other one, like Star Citizen.
Yeah.
So they had like Patreon. I think not a Patreon, but I'm like mixing up a lot of names right now. But they had a Kickstarter that I pledged to, and I was like, holy shit, this is so crazy. And when this game comes out, I'm just gonna be out of high school. According to their timetable back then. So that's kind of what our wedding is right now.
I know what one I was thinking of because it started with an S. Silk Song. Our marriage is Silk Song. It was originally going to start the Hollow Knight one. It originally was going to be a DLC, but the more and more we have to wait to get married, it's going to be a full-fledged video game that will delight all the fans.
Pretty much.
We have a third guest.
Second guest. You are the host.
I'm a guest. I do not live in this house. We have Zippo the Tiger. Woo!
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
We're also, oddly enough, all in person this evening, all three of us. And if you skipped the intro that I'm going to talk about in a sec and haven't recorded yet, we're in Scotland right now. We're in the gracious graces of Zippo the Tiger, a Scottish native who has lovingly had us over for the New Year and extended January holidays. So thank you very much for that. You are an absolute light and a gem.
You're welcome.
It's been
lovely having you over.
Thank you very much. Like I said, I think I was talking about this in the introduction that I haven't recorded yet, but the visa stuff in our marriage situation has been going on weirdly. We were not able to get married in the time it took before the travel visa expired, so I do have to go back to the States at the end of this week, and we'll be there for like an extended period of time, probably 6 months-ish. But eventually we're going to try to have Zuma come over to there, get married there, and then do stuff from that point on. We're in Scotland right now because we were happy to visit our friend for New Year. However, it has proven to be a great boon to be here because it means I don't have to go home immediately because my visa would have ran out at like the start of January, and it would have been like a weird flight situation. So we figured it out and had time, and it's been great being here. But yeah. Anything you want to tell us about yourself as a creative or as a person, or what you want the audience to know? Like, you're a fur friend. Haven't had a fur friend on the podcast for a sec, but...
Yes, I'm an author on FA mostly. I have accounts on other places, but FA is kind of my home. So I might be known from there. My name is spelled strangely on there because somebody else stole the original name, despite me having signed up in 2005. If anyone remembers 2005, it was a while ago. So yes, yeah, I'm in the first sphere. I'm a white tiger. I'm an author that's known for various things. Not the biggest account, but it's been going for quite a while, so it's got its long-term fans, which is always nice to have people who appreciate your work. So outside of that, I'm a computer programmer like most furries.
Yeah.
I might become one if the whole teacher thing doesn't pan out.
Well, I'm not gonna do it. I think it's too late for me to learn how a computer works. But yeah, that's impressive. With all new guests to the podcast for the first time, I like to ask them 4 questions. Zuma, if you have any new answers at all, feel free to add, but I don't feel like you will.
Maybe, who knows?
It's been 3 months since I've last had you on. But if you're ready, I got 4 questions for you. Now, feel free to answer them with any degree of comfortability you want. If there's questions are like a little personal, then you don't have to answer them. That's cool.
Sure.
But the first question is, do you believe in ghosts, aliens, or anything else considered unexplainable and paranormal?
No. Aliens, I have sort of a scientific realist view on aliens in that they're maybe aliens. There's probably life out there somewhere, whether it's advanced and intelligent, who knows? Great Filter. A lot of recent history on this planet seems to suggest the Great Filter is a pretty good explanation for why we don't see anything out there, and that we're all self-destructive.
Ooh, we are doomed.
Other than that, have aliens having visited us or received our signals? No. Ghosts and other paranormal such things? No. No, I'm a skeptic, sort of rationalist, scientist sort of outlook.
That's cool. This next question is probably easy to answer considering that answer, but have you ever had any experiences with these sorts of things at all? And if so, would you like to share a brief story?
I don't think so. I guess I may have had experiences that other minded people may have put down to ghosts, and that I was like, oh no, that's explainable, and then forgot about. That's possible. I think everyone's had strange things happen and noises in their house. When I moved here, so I've been in this house for like 6 months. I lived at my parents' before. This is the first house I've lived in on my own. I've lived in student flats before, not in my parents', but I moved out of my parents because I was a boomerang kid. Went back to my parents after uni to come to this house, and for the first like 3 weeks or so, when I was falling asleep at night, the bed would just sort of vibrate. As in similar sort of vibrations to if a washing machine was on somewhere else in the house. And actually the first night it happened, I'd left the washing machine on but empty. So the door was open, but the machine itself wasn't off. And I thought, maybe its drum turns over for some reason when it's off. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And then it happened subsequent nights and the washing machine was definitely off. Maybe my neighbour is running the washing machine at 1 a.m. You'd be unlikely to feel that through the wall because it's a detached house. So who knows what that was. Eventually just stopped. But yeah, sort of vibrating. Maybe it was my heart. Who knows?
Well, it's fun that you're thinking about that sort of thing. Like you're doing the experimentation for that instead of being like, this is obviously something weird, or being like, this is obviously something I'm not going to look into and assume is mundane. I like anybody who's looking into it with an experimentative mind. Yeah,
I just came to the conclusion in the end that I don't know, and it stopped, and I stopped caring. Yeah.
The third question I have is, do you follow an organized religion, or are you more agnostic-minded? Does the existence of the esoteric and paranormal line up with your religious, scientific, and or agnostic beliefs?
Yes, so I was raised an atheist. My parents were both atheists. It's an ice cream truck.
It's an ice cream truck.
It's an ice cream truck.
Woo! Yeah. Isn't it winter?
Yeah, I don't get it either. But apparently...
Is somebody honking because they're mad?
My ice cream truck.
I hope this is getting picked up. We're not crazy people.
No, it's probably not getting picked up, but it's still out there.
This is an ice cream truck in January.
Like, here I don't know as well, but I lived in like a village for most of my life, in like an estate in a village. And the ice cream truck started coming around at like really weird times because I think we were like off the route. So in a summer's day, they would go to like the park in the city, and then if it was raining in November, they would be like, let's go out to there because we might as well not sit and do nothing. We might as well go somewhere. But let's not go to the popular places. We'll do that when it's sunny. So we would get the ice cream truck when it was cold and horrible.
We would never get that in Michigan in the United States, but that's because in January, and I'm actually pretty sure we had a blizzard in Michigan yesterday that gave us like 3 feet of snow, but there's 3 feet of snow and nobody wants ice cream at all. So it's not like snowy here, but it's cold here. Who's going to want that?
Yeah, it's freezing. It's hovering around freezing.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
ice.
even the just ice cream cafes, the ice cream parlors, that's what I was looking for. Those guys just close over the winter,
Yeah.
They aren't open. I don't know if this. I'm pretty sure Cold Stone's probably still open in America.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But in Germany, it's just an old thing. I think there's even a tax thing going on with it, where they save on taxes when they close down in the winter, so that makes it feasible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's why on earth would you sell ice cream in the winter?
Well, we just had a paranormal experience, everyone. A phantom.
No, I saw it. It was there.
Well, yeah, but a phantom is sometimes something you can see.
It was corporeal. It was solid.
Did you touch it? Nah, you just saw it with your eyes.
Sweetie, I'm pretty sure you haven't touched your own dick in a couple of years since you've taken on a chastity cage. So
we are in a very much for those unaware, in this household there's a big power dynamic thing going on, and my chastity key is in a safe. We can talk about that on the podcast. I don't think I made that clear.
You can't cut it out if you don't like it, but I think it was cute.
Yeah, this podcast can and will get horny.
Good.
He hasn't been bought by Disney yet, sadly.
Yep. DreamWorks though.
Does Disney do podcasts actually? Probably not. Right?
I don't think so.
Who's
I feel like Disney. I feel like the people that like Disney as a corporation aren't the type of people to get into podcasts.
I guess Spotify you can get bought by Spotify. Maybe.
That's true. Anyway, what's your just the existence of ghosts and stuff line up with your religious and/or agnostic and/or scientific views?
Yes. So yes, I was raised an atheist and always have been, and have a very dim view on organized religion, and sort of obviously I'm therefore sort of rational scientific method-y skeptic. So that sort of aligns with my view on ghosts. They, I guess, are viewed, yes, through the lens of science, that you view the God stuff the same way as you view the ghost stuff. Although the ghost stuff, I will say, is a lot less problematic.
Woo! That's how I like it.
Yeah.
I like that answer.
That's funny though, isn't it? Because you said you were doing research for your last podcast into aliens, and it sounds very relaxed and chill. I don't know if you talked about that in the last podcast.
Okay, so for those who don't know, I've tried to make a Christmas episode. It's been an editing hard time because it's been digital or remote recorded, and my friend who has been on the show before, Rebecca, didn't record the audio well enough, so I gotta actually see her before I figure that out, because I think it's an Audacity thing. But I did an Alien episode over the holidays that I'll probably release later. You can continue with your thought.
It's like what I was saying. You said it was a whole different experience to go look into ghosts to look into aliens rather than ghosts. Yeah!
Alien people get into the conspiracy anti-government zone and then snowball into fucking right-wing extremism zone really easy.
QAnon.
Ghost people don't do that as much. Yeah. Ghost stories are usually chill. I am not doing the best job at articulating this point. I do not mean to insinuate that all, or even most, people who believe or report in aliens or UFOs fall into that camp. I'm merely saying that I think it happens a little bit more than it does with ghost stories, because there are a lot of bad actors in the field with conspiratorial propaganda that inform how people report that sort of thing. This is not a thought that I am doing a great job of articulating while drunk. Yeah. Not that all alien people are, just sometimes I'll be reading, I think literally one of the books that I was trying to read for the Rendlesham Forest incident episode, the very opening preface was I have always been a big fan of Margaret Thatcher.
Hashtag not all alien people.
Hashtag not all alien people. I believe in aliens, I just don't want to be an extremist about it. Ghost people are chill.
Yeah.
The last question I had, do you have anything you want to plug at all?
No, I don't think so. No, yeah, my FA account takes over as just saying, I think people who want that stuff are already there, generally. I just work away on commissions and stuff.
Do you want to talk about the themes of your writing, or
Yes.
would you prefer to leave that to the imagination?
It's bondage, latex, water sports, the good stuff, basically.
Oh yeah.
It's fairly hardcore, but it's mostly dubcon, and it's not particularly niche. Like, there's nothing really niche in there that you would see crop up on lots of people no lists. So it's generally, I would say, it's fairly acceptable to most people who would be into the fetish side of things. But yeah, it's very gear heavy, so lots of descriptions of gearing up and such. That seems to be where my skills as a writer lay. And yeah, lots of there's some YCH projects and various other things that happen, but it's mostly commissions from people who want specific things written. So that's the only real thing I have in the furry space that would ever be plugged. But it's not like I have a continuing thing or
No
series
Patreon or whatnot.
Exactly. There's no Patreon. I was never really that consistent enough in producing things to set up a Patreon. So
That's fair.
Yeah.
I don't think I know how to advertise on Patreon, so it'd be a hard thing to untangle in the first place. But that's neat. Thank you for answering the questions. Tonight, our encyclopedic collection is going to be the Irimabu Phantasma collection, with a lot of heavy-handed borrowing from the Folked Up collection. And I'll get to that in a second, because tonight's story, and I'm not going to spoil it just yet, is actually two different stories. The first is an overarching legend, and the second is a specific location-based legend. That'll make sense in a sec, though.
Cool.
The potion brewed this evening is across the board. I think everybody's drinking something different, and I have two different bottles of things. But what I'm drinking currently, in a sec here, is Witchwood Brewery's Hobgoblin Gold beer from Scotland. I'm very excited about it. I've not had it before. I almost got Innocent Gun, but I had that over New Year, and I wanted to try something new. But what are y'all drinking this evening?
I'm having an Asahi Super Dry. It's probably very mundane in America. I think you can get it pretty much everywhere there, right?
I've never seen it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like the most common Japanese beer, I suppose.
Okay. I think, I don't remember the name of it, but I think, the most common Japanese beer is specifically one that they sell at, the Japanese-style arcades.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
I'm going to look it up.
It's like a very normal type of beer. I've been wondering about that myself.
I destroyed the coasters.
I might need the bottle opener, actually. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wooden coasters don't go in the washing machine or the dishwasher. That's a hot tip for the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Don't put wooden coasters and placemats in the dishwasher, because it just destroys them. Yeah.
I shall not be doing it. What are you having this evening?
I've got Moretti Zero. Moretti's a fairly well-known Italian beer. There's got a guy with a mustache as the logo. It's pretty well known. There's always an old poster of it in the pizza shop I went to as a kid. There was just this big guy with this big mustache drinking Moretti. So, and Zero because I'm not exactly teetotal, but I'm pretty much teetotal. I don't drink very often or very much. I drank a little bit over New Year. I will drink a glass of wine with Christmas dinner, that sort of thing. But tonight I want to be cogent for this evening. I think we'll be doing some gaming and such. And I always phase out a bit if I've drunk even a little bit. I'll sort of phase out and get a bit kind of. I can't. I'm not on top form in terms of concentrating.
I'm going to be bringing the team down this evening. I was going to do a little ASMR bit, but it's always hard to do with bottles, so you missed. You can't hear it on the mic. But I'm going to do a pouring sound. Oh yeah, we're gonna. I don't know if I've talked about it on the show before, but we're gonna be playing a game called Deep Rock Galactic, which is one of the best co-op games I've ever played in my entire life.
Yeah.
For those unaware, it's an indie game wherein you play dwarves, like D&D style dwarves, but you're in space mining a planet full of bugs that you shoot with a gun. And it's an airtight game. Every part of it is brilliant. The customization is brilliant. The classes, there's 4 of them. They're brilliant.
Yeah, the weapons are fantastic.
We're a big fan.
Pretty much amazing. We're not sponsored by Deep Rock Galactic, but by God, we would love to.
Yes, get to call us. Go ship games.
I will simp harder than you've ever had somebody simp for you before. This is like very quickly becoming one of my favorite games.
Yeah, definitely.
Hobgoblin time, though. Whoa, ooh. That hits kind of like an IPA for like a sec.
Oh, yeah, it smells hoppy.
Yeah, it's hoppy.
Yeah.
It's not an IPA.
No, it's gold beer.
Yeah, I think it's like a gold beer is like a
I mean, I'd assume that's
pseudonym
like
for an ale.
A pale ale, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah.
I like it. It's at the like first taste of it. It's like very hoppy, and I'm like, my brain is like IPA zone, panic mode. I don't hate them, but like, I prefer darker things that are more malty. But then this one mellows out like in a split second in a direction that I really like. Also, just for those who were sad about my thread that I left open earlier in terms of the Japanese beer I was talking about, I found it. It's the Kirin beer. So there we go. That's the one we like in America. But yeah, without further ado, it's time to get into the story. Few phantoms can strike I'm going to start over. I want this to be brilliant. I want this to be an airtight telling. Few phantoms can strike fear in the hearts of fickle fellows like the ones you meet on the roadside. Spirits who you encounter in the chilling night, out on the road, alone and far from home. And even more harrowing are the spirits you can't outrun. The dark figures on horseback, patrolling the roadways, ready to run down any mortal that deigns to cross pathways. While Washington Irving immortalized the legend of the Headless Horseman in his story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, the premise of a Headless Horseman does not come from that story alone. Indeed, a genuine horseback spectre is said to prowl the roadways near Montrose and Brecon in Scotland, around the vicinity of the elegant House of Dunn. He may, in fact, be more than a simple spirit, for various cultures around the area have a horseback spectre in their lexicon. The Irish speak of the Dullahan, a headless horseback fairy, while others have heroes lost in ages in battles, decapitated, of course. Scottish folklore also has its fair share of Headless Horseman legends, only without a fey name attached to it. Regardless of whether or not the horseman is a ghost or something older, he is anything if not alone on the property. The spirit of a woman has also been cited, as well as a slaying knight, a floating dress, and even a few canine spirits to boot. Indeed, the House of Dunn is the place to be in the afterlife, and is going to be the topic of this Foxxo Esoterica episode that I am making currently in Scotland. Woo!
Woo!
So I worded that weirdly because I think I wrote this before I did the research, but I'm going to be doing a two-part episode. First, we're going to be talking about the Headless Horseman legend because it is like really cool. I liked it. And then we're going to talk about the ghosts. Woo! Have you heard of the House of Dunn before?
I don't think so, no. I heard of Montrose and Brecon.
Brecon, okay.
Yes.
I said it wrong.
No, there's never any clue of how you pronounce things in Scotland. You just have to grow up learning them. I get it the other way around. I'll hear things growing up and then see them written down, like on the front of a bus, and be like, "Is that how you spell that?" It's weird because you say it this way. So yes, they're in Angus. Well, Montrose is. I think Brecon is.
They're like
kind of forgotten,
mere miles away from each other.
Yeah, it's a kind of a forgotten part of the country because there's no major city in it. It's kind of above Dundee. But yeah, I have a friend from Carnoustie, which is another town in Angus near Montrose.
Okay,
so
that's on the eastern side of the Highlands, right?
Yes,
cool.
It's not really in the Highlands. The Highlands kind of cuts diagonally across the country, so it's not very high. Angus. Some of them might claim to be in the Highlands. It's kind of debatable, but yeah, it's not really in the Highlands. But generally, most people in Scotland live on the east as well. Glasgow is the only real major settlement on the west.
Okay.
Everything else is on the east or in the middle.
That makes sense. That'll be where the story takes place this evening. And there's a couple of other key locations that there are some horsemen, headless horsemen, whores being spotted. The sources I have for this evening, I didn't use Wikipedia. Wikipedia doesn't have an article on this one. So this is the very first episode I didn't use Wikipedia for. Dab. But I did use the book Scottish Ghosts by Dane Love. I used a website article on Undiscovered Scotland for the House of Dunn for the historical information on that. As well as Welcome to the House of Dunn. A very, very haunted, or not haunted at all, website on the page of Keith J. Coleman's blog. Angus folklore. The article How Tales of the Headless Horseman Came from Celtic Mythology on the Irish Times website, written by Jessica Traynor. The article The Headless Horseman on the Scots Magazine website, written by P.A. McNabb. And those are the sources for this evening. Not a lot of... There's books and stuff, which are kind of the main jumping off point, but a lot of people... this is like a blog-heavy one. There's like not a lot of newspaper articles on this story. A lot of people just are like, I'm hearing about it from the people who have visited and worked there. Who I think the person who works there helped with the blog and stuff. And I'll get to that person in a sec. However, though, before we get to the House of Dunn, let's talk about some Headless Horsemen. I'm kind of going to do a ghost archetype section in the story before I get into the stuff for the history buffs, so that way people are like, ghost podcast. Okay, now we'll get into the history. But let's do some Headless Horseman stuff. So, the Headless Horseman is a popular literary figure, and is sometimes, real, according to legends. Like, people will see it. Although the big main one, Legend of Sleepy Hollow, is not entirely based on, like, an actual ghost. There's a lot of elements of that story where the writer pulled from, like, real-life sources and things he'd heard, but there's not, like, a Headless Horseman ghost in that area of upstate New York in the United States. So that going hunting for that guy as a paranormal investigator will not yield results for you. However, he is the main bad guy in the 1820 short story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, written by Washington Irving. I think it was published alongside his other short story, Rip Van Winkle. He likes to write little pseudo-horror fantasy stuff. In this story, schoolmaster Ichabod Crane, bopping about in upstate New York, has to outrun the Headless Horseman and has to reach the Old Dutch burying grounds, where the horseman is said to disappear, before it catches up to Crane and steals his head. The ending of the book is actually ambiguous. The Headless Horseman has a pumpkin, and he throws it at people to, like, get them. It's on fire. And it's like the pumpkin is thrown. Who knows what happened? Both the horsemen and Ichabod Crane have disappeared. In this story, bringing it back to Germany, the horseman is rumored to be a Hessian soldier working for the British in the Revolutionary War, who got decapitated by a cannonball. So we have a vengeful spirit archetype going on. He also has the pumpkin head for now. Pumpkinhead.
I know that story from... I know the story in general. Like, I've heard the name Legend of Sleepy Hollow before, but... I also know that there's like this American show with the dog that explains like literature. Brutal must do a video on them too.
Oh fuck.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think I can suss it out. I'm like thinking of Goosebumps, but it's just 100% not Goosebumps. I feel like it's a name similar to that. Brutal Moose, stellar YouTuber. I stan. I think everyone would enjoy his content. Wishbone, not like Goosebumps at all.
I want to fucking watch that show. It looks really cute.
I mean, anything with legends and talking dogs is enchanting and good.
Have you watched that video?
No, I don't think so. I know Brittle Moose, but not that one.
That's a good video. Basically, but like the show is basically about you have like the dog who's called Wishbone, and you're gonna have like 50% of the episode devoted to him just doing modern day shenanigans, but it's always gonna loop back to like a story from a while ago. So in this case, it was like Sleepy Hollow, and so the other 50% is just Wishbone being in that story, and he's a dog, and he's just kind of being one of the roles. So what was the school headmaster called again?
Ichabod Crane.
Yeah, it's Wishbone that wants Ichabod Crane, and it's great because everyone is just people, but Wishbone's still just a dog, and it's hilarious. Like it's absolutely adorable.
Is it a filmed dog?
Yeah, it's a filmed dog.
Okay, it's not animated.
No, it's
an actor dog.
It's an actor dog.
He has his BFA.
He has like a whole Victorian suit and everything. It's great. We're gonna watch it later. It's a really funny video too.
I would love to watch that. That sounds enchanting.
Yeah.
Speaking of the horsemen with the headless variety, though, and things in Germany, Washington Irving actually based his story on a German poem written by Gottfried Bürger named The Chase. But this is like less of a here's a decapitated soldier stealing heads as much as a here's a horseback spirit chasing after people. I didn't really read the poem because it was an amount of translating I didn't want to do, but like it's like the horseman spirit getting you. So Irving took that, jumped off from it, found an actual Hessian soldier that actually got decapitated in the Battle of the White Plains in 1776, and was like, smash them together, here's my story. So that's where that came from. There's like not a ghost legend attached to like the actual real life decapitated soldier, but he's like, we're going Headless Horseman. This guy's got a backstory that's headless. We're doing it. The only other prominent Headless Horseman legends that I could find, though, take place in Ireland and Scotland. Headless knights show up in the Brothers Grimm fairy tales, and as well as an Arthurian legend involving Sir Gawain, which is actually a funny one, where it's like, there's this knight, and he's like, hey, Sir Gawain, if you cut my head off, I spoiled it. If you, like, attack me, I'm gonna return the attack 3 times in, like, a month, so do what you want. And Sir Gawain's like, I know what I'll do. Cut the dude's head off. And then the knight picked up his head and was like, alright, see you in 3 months. And Sir Gawain was like, what? I don't want to deal with this. And eventually he survives, because he's a knight of the Round Table, and he's like, I'm gonna be real, I didn't think that, like, I'd have to get my head cut off. And the knight was like, that's fine.
He had plot armor.
You learned a lesson. The most noble armor. The difference, though, between Ireland and Scotland's Headless Horsemen, which I described already, is that Ireland has like a sort of fairy fae thing going on, and in Scotland, they're just all ghosts. So
we have fairies here as well.
Yeah,
like fairy
the Headless Horseman in Scotland is not a fae.
Yes, I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes.
The Dullahan is a cool dude, though. He's also known as the Dullahan, or the Gansain, which I'm saying wrong, which are various translations on Headless Man. So it's like, it's not just one thing. It's like, here's the Headless Man spirit. It is said to be a knight clad in black robes, riding a magnificent black stallion, and usually cradling his head under his shoulders. He didn't get decapitated, though, or something. It is said that the head can, like, see incredible distances, and he holds it up, like, high so that it can help do him that. He works for the Celtic fertility god, Crom-Dubh, which is ironic because he kills people.
Crom-Dubh sounds like a Twitch streamer.
Crom-Dubh.
Crom-Dubh, you guys. We're ready for another round of Fortnite.
Crom-Dubh back here for the Crom-Dab. Everybody subscribe.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, let's get the Crom-Dubh army in here.
Crom-Dubh, if you're listening to this podcast, I think you're neat. I learned my lesson from Robert the Doll. Our marriage plans fell through. I think because we're like in his neighborhood. I feel weird.
Fertility, or what's he gonna do? My penis.
I just came. Don't punish me.
Mine was better.
Yeah, mine's more niche,
Is it?
kinky. The Dullahan, though, has a trait where he kills people, so not very fertile. It is said that whenever he stops his horse, just stops riding, someone dies, just in the area. They're dead now. If he knows your name, he can also speak it out loud if he wants to choose to kill somebody. So
that's another one of these stories where just the wrong person's getting the credit. Like, the horse stops, then the horse is the one that kills someone.
You're right.
I feel like the demonic power is coming from the horse. It's just being written out as a story, because horses can neither write nor speak. So he can't tell his own story.
You're right.
Yeah.
The Dullahan is not the one with the agency here. The horse indeed is. I like that narrative.
Yeah, thank you.
However, the Dullahan can speak a name out loud and choose to kill somebody, so there's at least some collaboration going on. He also has a whip made out of a human spine, and he also has buckets of blood, which he uses to blind people by pouring it on them if he feels like it. So that's a very metal aspect to his narrative. He is also sometimes claimed to be, like, the actual manifestation of Crom-Dubh, not just, like, a spirit working for him. According to, like, a lot of different sources, he just kind of manifests as this Headless Horseman dude. Because according to legend, and also a lot of articles online, people used to sacrifice humans to Crom-Dubh by means of decapitation, which, again, does not feel like a very fertile thing to do. I think once you take life out of the world, you're not a fertility deity as much. That's just me. But then one day the Christians swooped in and were like, whoa, stop doing that. And according to legend, Crom was like, so no head. And he now roams the Irish countryside looking for heads of sacrificial victims. That way he can, like, have his heads again. All being said, though, this is strictly a mythological dude and not a cryptid or a ghost or whatever. I don't think anyone spots him. Like, no one's like, oh my god, the Dullahan, which happens in Scotland. Have you heard of that guy before?
No, I don't think so. No,
I have not either before this one.
yeah,
I think he's neat.
yeah.
Fun little fairy. Put it in your D&D campaign. I think it's neat.
Yeah, but yeah, he's the Irish one.
Yeah, that's the Irish
And yeah,
one.
he's purely mythological.
Yep.
Yes. So yeah, I don't know what like moral lesson he was trying to teach.
I don't think he's just like, I think once you get to that sphere of mythology, it's not like a moral lesson as much as like, here's some gods and their trickery time. They're just having fun. They're not here to teach anybody
It
anything.
was just drunk druids just sort of making stuff up.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Good for them. The Headless Horseman of the House of Dunn, though, is a mysterious figure separate from the Dullahan because it's often reported as a ghost. Like, people are like, shit, that's the ghost. And, like, people will be driving in their cars and see it on the roadside and then drive away. It doesn't, like, get you or anything. It just kind of chases. However, this guy is described as, like, a black-cloaked headless dude on a white stallion instead of a black one. It is really hard to find historical information to discern who could have died on the property. Like, nobody was tragically beheaded as far as I could find. A few Scottish landowners in the Erskine line, and the family who owns the property is named the Erskine clan. But I don't think they ever had any, like, crazy battles or something going on at that specific piece of property wherein people's heads are getting cut off and stuff. There are a couple of anecdotes, though. According to one legend, a knight went to the Crusades to do the crusade thing, and then he came back to find his best friend sleeping with his wife. Aww. And they had a fight, and then the knight died. But it is hard to verify that actually happened because there aren't any names attached. It's just a little legend. We'll get to the House of Dunn history and ghost stuff in a sec, but I do want to talk about other Headless Horsemen in Scotland that we do have names attached to, namely Ewain the Headless, or Ewan. E-W-A-N. Is there like a specific way to pronounce that?
It's probably Ewan.
Okay, Ewan the Headless.
Yeah.
You heard about that guy before?
No.
Okay.
Where's this from? Which area?
This one is in the island of Skye, actually. So.
Oh, in Skye, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Skye's...
this one's...
I've never actually been to Skye, but it's nice. As far as I hear.
Sounds like a tricky place to get to.
Yeah, it is. It's very touristy, though. It's one of those places where you would spend 6 hours trekking to it in a car, and then there would just be tourists everywhere. They shut it, like, last summer. Well, not last summer. The summer before COVID hit. They just, like, shut the island and were like, you can't come on unless you've got a reservation with a hotel. Okay. Because there's no space. So go away. So, yeah. It's just off... There's a bridge to it. It's just off the mainland on the west.
Oh, okay.
Side. So it is an island, but it has a bridge, and it's got quite a close history with the mainland because it's not very isolated from the mainland. But it is still up in the Highlands, and it's very rural. So
cool.
You can see why ghosts would, it's the sort of place where you would get folklore and ghost stories from the locals. I feel like
that makes sense. There's definitely one that like people have gotten the historical like validation on, and have like found the details and stuff of a guy that got beheaded. But this story takes place in 1583. Ewan of the Little Head, he also has the name Iogan Achin Big, which is Gaelic, and I'm not good at pronouncing it. But he is the son of a Scottish clan MacLean leader, the MacLeans of Lochbuie to be specific, because there's a couple of the faction or like branches within the clan itself that kind of like are vying for power in this story. Ewan has a wife. It was the daughter of MacDougall of Lorne, and like he's in a possession of a good amount of land, but he wanted more, and his wife was like, "You should definitely get like more if you can do it. Like I think you should try to fight people for more land." Classic Macbeth arc. She convinces Ewan to try and convince his own dad to give him more land and title as chief. Ewan's father, Iachin, would not give his title up, and Ewan tried to intimidate him by being like, "All right, I'll fight you for it. Just complete combat. We're doing it." He may or may not have also hit his father over the head with the handle of his blade. So his bluff was called out, and his father was like, "We're going to have a duel, We're going to bring our armies together, and we're going to actually fight for real. And so the son was like, I have to kill my dad now. Uh-oh. It is unknown where the fight took place exactly, but it was probably like the Glenmore area at Blarchian, Scotland. Please forgive me. I'm just reading this. I'm not pronouncing it great. This is literally in my notes. I appreciate y'all. Cannot read well. It's almost German, which is why I felt comfortable trying it, but it's not German enough because I'm doing poorly. However, the day before the fight, Ewan met a woman in a green dress while out riding the horse. The woman was like, hey there, if you have butter on your table tomorrow morning, you're gonna win this fight. But if not, you're gonna die. And Ewan immediately thought, aha, so this is a fae being. Oh no. And graciously thanked the woman and was like, thanks for the advice. I'm gonna leave now. I'm afraid. And he got stressed. The next day came, and alas, his servant forgot to set the butter out on the table. So not using 100% of his brain, Ewan kind of was like, I remember that being important. I'm gonna do the fight anyway. He brought his men as backup, as these sorts of duels oftentimes turn into battles if stuff is weird, even though, oftentimes it'll just be a duel and the armies would be there to be, a third party, kind of like Hamilton with the Doctor, for musical theater nerds. He brought his men there, and at that day where the skirmish rolled around, Ewan rode in on a black stallion right out into the middle of the action. Because instead of a duel happening, they just went to war immediately. Like a battle was being fought between the two sides of the same clan. Like Ewan got his men together, his dad got his men together, they're fighting, and a foe with a claymore seized his opportunity and just beheaded the unfortunate Ewan right then and there, ending the battle and the man's life. The frightened horse bolted out of the scene with the poor Ewan's body still holstered to the saddle and his head jammed up into stirrups, and the horse would ride for 2 miles before Ewan's body fell off. And when it was discovered, a cairn was built to honor the man. He would not, however, be finished on this earth, as some claimed. Now, here's the skinny. No one has figured out for certain the actual location of the battle, and it's kind of dubious on the cairn, but they may have found it. Historians do definitely know that the battle is probably located in the area between Lochshirin and Craig area. Oh, I was wrong. Not the island of Skye, the island of Mull. I think it's in the area. Mull. It is unknown for certain whether or not fairies are real, but the other parts of the legend are definitely recorded, without the Green Lady, of course. And more recently, a man by the name of Robert McMorrin in the earliest 20th century took this legend into his own to try to find it, and he asked a lot of people in the area, and I think he was able to locate the cairn. It's just that the locations of the places that aren't the cairn are a little bit murky, because it's kind of word of mouth traveling down. The ghost of the Headless Horseback Rider is also reported throughout the backroads of the island of Mull to this day, though he was reportedly spotted way more when House MacLean was actually still in charge of the area, and much like the Doulahan, the Headless Horseman here was said to appear immediately before a member of the House MacLean would die. Also in historic times, the ghost of Ewan was said to have gone after members of the House of MacLean of Duart, Ewan's dad's uncle, who also had a property dispute fight and went to a war. They don't think he died in his little fight. Even going as far as jumping off of the horse and trying to literally fight members of that side of the house. And it's not like it was a prank or anything, because it was here's a headless dude coming after me. That's a tricky thing to fake. Although it was back in the, I think 1700s or something when people were reporting it, so who knows? A member of the family, Murdoch MacLean, died in 1909 on a completely different Scottish island named the island of Coll. And the Headless Horseman was even spotted then, just hanging around outside that, even though it's off the island. Though I think nowadays it's more of a family and not a house. It's not the clans are holding land anymore in the same way. So I think now that the 1900s have rolled around, nobody's in the family is seeing the ghost anymore. I don't know what sort of ghostly rules indicate when you can't haunt somebody, but I feel like it's good now. He's not doing it anymore.
Yeah, good.
He is, however, seen stalking lone drivers and wanderers at night, much like the House of Dunn horsemen. I found an anecdote wherein he almost ran a grocer off the road in his van. He was chasing him down, when the grocer like was in the ditch, just kind of like waiting for the horseman to pass, it was like gone. And he had to like push his van out, and it was like both scary and tricky because the van is heavy. Because I've seen the back roads of Scotland. Like once you get off the road, it's going to be very hard to get back onto it. It's a lot of ditches and cliffs
and mud.
He also is sometimes seen with a black dog on his side, and I don't know where that comes from. But yeah, that's the story of the other horsemen in the Scotland area. I'm going to do a little bit of a pour, but if y'all have anything to add before we get to the history of the House of Dunn itself, anything striking your fancy, any anecdotes?
I could see how a legend like that would start, I guess. The Highlands and Islands were extremely violent in the past. They're basically just Game of Thrones in real life. In fact, there are several legends, or several historical things which happened up there which were directly taken by George R.R. Martin and put into Game of Thrones. Like the legend about how the Lannisters seal people up in a mine, in a gold mine. I think it's to do with that. It's like an inter-clan rivalry. Yeah, there was like some people who hid on one of the small Scottish islands in a cave, and their rivals just set fire to the front of it and just smothered them all. The women and children too. So yeah, the clan warfare stuff was extremely violent. So you can see how they would sort of get into that sort of position. And yeah, I guess if people are fighting on horseback, these people probably aren't going to be very well armoured because they're not particularly wealthy. This isn't, 16th century France or the south of England. It's the Highlands Islands, so they've got weapons, but they'll maybe have a bit of light chainmail and some padded armour, but other than that, nothing. So yeah, I could see how a swing of a sword from another horseman could take off somebody's head.
Yeah, and that's not tricky. That's not easy to do. It's very tricky to do.
It is, but I'm sure it probably, over the hundreds of years of people fighting on horseback with swords, probably happened a few times. And then yeah, the horse is just going to run away. And yeah, if the person is reasonably well fastened onto the horse, they're not going to fall off immediately. So,
that's the thing that this story interests me in, is that you got like the fairy aspect to it, where like I'm doing a premonition, but then once like actual stuff is happening, it plays out, and like all of the details surrounding it are like, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like folk tales like that usually don't add little bits where it's like magical realism.
Yeah,
it's very rare for that.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, I can see how that would. And then again, with the Highlands and Islands, they didn't record their history, written down very well. So it would have been passed from house, down, and obviously their houses the clans are gonna have stories about each other, and so maybe there would be a story where one clan looks bad because it's been told by their enemies, and that's the one that's eventually ended up in print media. So yeah, there's that sort of thing as well, but. I can definitely see how a historical event would lead to a legend like that being passed down, with the horseman turning up and sort of foreboding as a sort of harbinger of the death of the clan, because I guess his supporters maybe wanted to cast him as a, oh well, he's going to get his revenge. He's now the harbinger of death of the opponents that he would have had in life. That sort of thing. So that I can see how that all makes total sense in the sort of historical context. With modern sightings of him, I guess, is there any sort of pattern to the modern sightings where they
chases your car?
Yeah,
I don't think a lot of ghosts like this don't like. It's probably like here's a 10-second, maybe 30-second thing. Nobody like timed it and wrote it down, but like I'm assuming like if someone's gonna run you down, if it goes on for more than a couple of minutes, you're probably going to end up at somebody's house or something.
Yeah.
But like,
it's in the Highlands. It could take a second.
Oh yeah, that's true. I was going to also bring it up. Now that we know it's not the island of Skye, and I'm silly, I imagine this one's less of a tourist destination, so like a lot less people are going to be there to see things, and the people who are there are probably not going to be like, who needs to know about this? Twitter.
Yeah, Mull is fairly sized island. It's a bit like Skye, I guess. Mull has a famous town on it that you'll have seen. Seeing things doesn't really work in a podcast, but
everybody park your cars and look it up. Oh my god, that's really colorful.
Yeah, it has like a harbour with houses painted different colours on it.
Scandinavian.
The BBC set a children's television programme there that might not translate to non-UK people, called Barlamori, and so and that's the sort of location they filmed that sort of thing.
Okay.
So Mull is a tourist destination, but not as much as Skye. It's a little bit easier to get to actually. It's still one of the big Scottish islands though. We have lots of islands, and it's one of the larger ones, which would have made it more tempting, I guess, for the old clans. It would have been a seat of power,
for sure.
Almost. Yeah, for the modern sightings. Yeah, I mean, were they? How recent were they? Are these
like 50s-ish. I don't think if it happens a lot nowadays, it's not something I've been able to find a story on.
Yeah,
mid 20th century.
For some reason, what always strikes me about, I don't know exactly how this would happen, but it's the sort of thing where, like, if you were in your car in the middle of the night in the Highlands in like winter, and there's nothing around, it's wilderness outside. If you somehow confused some form of light in or on your own car for something that was following you, if there was some sort of reflection or illusion, the faster you go, it's going to keep up with you. That sort of thing. I have heard of, there's been some accidents, and like, there was a guy who famously flew his airplane. He was flying a small airplane in Australia, I think it was, and started sighting like a UFO above him.
Oh fuck!
And then,
oh my god! Okay, wait. I know
one?
that I didn't do that one, but one of the podcasts I listened to actually just did that last year.
Yeah.
What's his name? Yeah, they did that one. He was in Melbourne area. He saw UFOs. There was
it kept up with his speeds, and it mirrored him perfectly. And what they found was he was flying upside down over a lake.
Yeah.
And so of course it was his own reflection.
Yeah.
And he then crashed his plane into a lake. So
it might have been the ocean.
Or the ocean. Yeah. But some water reflecting his lights.
That does happen. So, people can accidentally fly upside down if they're over the ocean and it's blue anyway, and then they get confused.
Yes, yeah, you need to trust your instruments instead of your visual stuff, because it is night, obviously. But that's obviously harder to see how that would happen with a car, but I can definitely see that sort of thing where the thing keeps following you at the same speed because it's coming from your car, that sort of thing. And then you end up in a ditch.
I can't say it's ever happened to me personally, but it doesn't seem like something that can happen.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I mean, maybe it was a quirk of 1950s cars. They were, yeah, who knows. But, yeah, I could see how that sort of thing would happen. Or just, I guess, once somebody's in that panic mindset, their logical reasoning brain turns off and they just start fleeing, and they don't stop and think until they've crashed into the ditch. And yeah, I guess all these sightings are quite fleeting.
When you're alone and stuff.
Yeah, although this guy's on the white horse. See, so that's
this one's on a black horse.
He's
the
on
one
the
at the
black
House of Dunn is
the white horse. Cool. Yeah, black horse, black robed guy in the night. It's kind of it's gonna be hard to see.
The guy in the airplane that disappeared, his name is Frederick Valentich. I brought him up, so I feel like I can't do an episode on him for a couple of years because now it feels weird. Shout-outs to the Astonishing Legends podcast. I love them a bunch. They do a great work. They did a good 2-part Frederick Valentich episode. They didn't do one on the House of Dunn, so I finally did an episode that they didn't cover. You would be surprised how much I accidentally... I'm like, ooh, this concept's cool. Oh, another podcast did it. I think like all the paranormal podcasts juggle around the same like 20 stories, and it takes me effort to find one that hasn't been covered. Puma, do you have any thoughts?
Not really, no. Like I said, I heard about the story of Sleepy Hollow, of course, but that's been a while ago now.
I've seen the Disney film.
Is there a Disney film?
It's like Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
Yeah, it's like a 2-parter.
Yeah, it's a weird 2-parter. Yeah. But Ichabod's a weird name.
I've never heard it outside of Sleepy Hollow.
What is it? Is it German?
Probably Dutch.
Ichabod doesn't sound German.
I know that the Sleepy Hollow legend is inherently very Pennsylvania Dutch. Yeah, not like that they're in Pennsylvania, but like it's not.
Yeah, it could be Dutch actually.
Yeah,
Dutch, not Deutsch.
Yeah.
Actually, I did have a couple of more instances of examples of Headless Horsemen in folklore and stuff before I get to the next part of the story. And I thought I'd just rapid fire talk about them, because I feel weird leaving them out. In England, we have one around the Gloucester area. Gloucester area. I know how to say that. I think could be more so.
This isn't even Gaelic. This is just English now.
Yeah, my language.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Learning a foreign language. If you have 2 brain cells and you're trying to learn a foreign language, one of them is going to get squeezed out. So the more I learn German, the less I know English. So everybody watch out, because this podcast will soon stop being in English. Hopefully.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure it's gonna happen, sweetie.
Ooh, I'm good at
How
it.
that ordering a single burger at McDonald's got one time we tried it.
I feel like that was at 6 in the mornings. So I'm fine.
Well, the kiosk, sweetie, you didn't even have to speak.
You're right. This is pictures and everything. There's one, though, in Gloucester, England, involving a horseman that just straight up broke his neck accidentally, and now he likes to race people and is sometimes spotted to this day. Mexico has one named El Muerto, which is a very funny name. I think that means the death.
Yeah, sounds like it, yeah.
It's interesting.
It's very generic.
Very generic. Involving a few people who are bounty hunting horse thieves. They catch up to the horse thieves, and then they decapitate them, and then send them on wild horses throughout the Mojave to intimidate people. So you'll see this decapitated horse rider and be like, holy fuck, I might not steal horses anymore. In India, we have one by the name of Jinjar. He was a noble prince that was killed by bandits while protecting his city. I didn't find too much information on modern-day sightings of these guys, but I thought they'd be neat. Like, Headless Horseman legends are pretty, prevalent in the world. I think that's cool.
Yeah. The Mexican one sounds terrifying. It just sounds like drug cartels.
It was like a Wild West time period type
stuff's
thing.
just yeah, bad stuff's just going down in Mexico. Yeah.
That is a scene from Breaking Bad. It feels like the one with the tortoise or the turtle. I don't know if you've seen Breaking Bad.
I never got around to it, yeah.
I do not see him.
Yeah, there's some Breaking Bad spoilers, but I don't think it was a major character. A minor character who may or may not be attached to the drug cartels is like an informant, I think, working for the police. And then they caught him, and then they're like, we're going to put his head on a turtle. And when the other cops find him, they'll be like, holy fuck, that's horrifying. But not only is there a head on the turtle, there's a bomb.
Yeah, no, like the scene was like
fucking weird.
Well, the friend of the protagonist, not a friend, I think brother-in-law.
Yeah,
brother-in-law. The brother-in-law of the protagonist is one of these policemen, and he's the only one that gets faced by it because he's just been going to that new area. So he runs away to vomit, and then while they're all laughing at him for thinking it's crazy, the thing blows up and everyone except him dies.
Yeah. Breaking Bad is a good show. I know that's a very hot take.
Yeah.
Everybody, if you haven't watched it, I recommend it. This podcast is me bringing up media and then getting excited about it once more. I have another beer in the fridge. Everybody entertain the mic.
Well, I don't know what to say, sweetie.
This bit's gonna get cut. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I know.
Leaving it in out of spite. So we're actually going to get to the House of Dunn in a second, but I've timed this wonderfully. Now I'm going to be opening up my second beer by the Eagle Brewery. And this one is sticky toffee pudding beer, because they don't do flavored beers in Germany. And I saw it and I was like, oh my god, I haven't had a flavored beer in ages. Where is that guy? Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to try this one?
No.
I might smell it again.
Dude, I will smell it actually. It sounds horrifying.
Sticky toffee pudding sounds nice and sweet and fun.
What kind of pudding? There's like 7 different kinds in
sticky toffee.
You know, I mean, like pudding is like an actual pudding, or is it?
It's like a. It's a bit like a cake. It's kind of a cakey, spongy sort of material.
I like that. That's nice. It's sweet, caramely. Probably coffee-y. That's the word.
Yeah, it's like a dark beer, but it's not very bitter. It's very, very caramely.
You'll find this kind of flavor in beers like all the time in craft breweries in Michigan. Like if they're not making an IPA, they're getting like a dark beer and pairing it with like a pastry.
I've had like chocolate flavored dark beers, but this is less bitter and more burnt caramel.
Yeah. It works for me. Go Eagle Brewery. House of Dunn, though. We're here. We're doing it. 3 miles, or around 5 kilometers, west of Montrose, on the south end of the Montrose Basin, lies the House of Dunn. The property's history was first recorded in 1375 when it belonged to the Clan Erskine, who, being purchased by Sir Robert Erskine in that year, decided to finally be like, here's this castle, my family's moving in, and we own lands and titles. He was Justicar and given property and stuff for being involved with the succession of King Robert II. I think he kind of vied for that position a little, in as much as his son, Sir Robert Erskine, was in charge of Edinburgh Castle for a hot sec. But he got his property instead, and everybody was like, this is fine for me. I like this castle up here, bada bing, bada boom. The land initially held a castle, Castle Dunn, and I believe that the Hastings held the castle before 1375, but the records don't really go back that far and are more hazier than they are with other castles. At least that's as far as I could find. Clan Erskine would install a tower to it and live there as a whole clan until 1723. And a lot of stuff happened during that time period, obviously. But in 1723, it is important to note that they decided they didn't want a castle anymore. Because in this time period, a lot of upper-class people were making the move from castles to estates in the year because the French were, really trend-setting. And everyone's like, these castles are cold and I hate them. I want a chateau now.
Usually it was the Italians who was doing the trend-setting, but because a lot of stuff in the Anglosphere was written obviously, they thought it was coming from France.
Interesting.
All the Renaissance stuff spread from Italy.
Oh yeah, I know a lot of the art, paintings and music and stuff. But I didn't know architecture also.
Yeah, I mean, you hear about stuff like the classical orders and things. They always liked, classic revival and stuff like that. That was later, but they always liked the stuff from Rome, and stuff from Rome was first copied in Italy usually, which makes sense because that's where all
Rome.
the stuff is. Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Thank you for the anecdote.
It might be made up though. I often just make up things up to sound smart.
No, that's this whole podcast. You don't do it more than
enough.
I do.
Fair enough.
Stuff did happen at the castle though before it was taken down. It was at one point taken by Adam Gordon of Auchindoun, Mary Queen of Scots Ark in the 1500s. I don't believe the Erskines liked her. It seems they probably fought against her. At some point, the Marquis de Montrose, unspecified which one. The latter attack being a raid at the... Oh, no, that's who they were going against. There was, a battle in that area, and the property was taken over by the Marquis de Montrose, but then, given back after the war kind of fell out. The latter attack happened in an unknown year in the 17th century, and a lot of records were kind of, lost during the raid. The people who took the property took a lot of, the kept records, and they were destroyed in the process. So not only was this tricky to have been written on, but, a lot of, the details about this time period are lost because of this specific raid. The Marquis of Montrose, which I aforementioned, did definitely go after the Erskines, though, because, the Erskines wanted to remain Presbyterian and joined the National Covenant instead of letting King Charles I and William Laud, the Archbishop of Canterbury, to get, religious doctrine control over this area of land. So they were like, we want to remain Presbyterian, don't nationalize the church. And that's why another battle took place at that point, the 17th century one. A woman named Anne Gibb may have been discovered at the parish at Castle Dunn and was accused of witchcraft, though no one knows what happened to her. This did happen, though, around the same time Scotland had a little bit of a witch hunt, so one does not have to imagine that hard what happened.
Yeah.
This is not on my own podcast, but I was a guest on one of my friends' podcasts, because they have two hosts instead of me, the one. We were talking about witches and stuff, and I think Anne Sampson was her name. I could be wrong. There's she was a folk healer, and then she got caught up in a witch hunt craze where a servant was like, that person's a witch too, and then she got burnt. So didn't happen at this castle, but happened around the area. So shouts to her. Love her a bunch. Everybody check out Cryptoboozology's Witch Cryptid episode because some more Scottish witches are happening in that podcast. Anyway, though, that's all of the records that pertain to the most important things that are happening at this castle because, as I said, a lot of them were lost. I think I'll talk about this in a sec because one of the members of the Erskine family in the 20th century went on a huge project to write about her own family's history, and I think I got that in my notes somewhere later, but that'll come up, and that's where a lot of this information comes from. Any thoughts at all?
Don't know. It sounds like it had a colourful history of conflict, which a lot of places did before it all settled down in the 1800s, and it was all involved in various sorts of power struggles. I did Google a photo of it. It looks like a fairly impressive, stately house.
Oh yeah, the house is pretty. I think the house is like now in like some sort of UNESCO heritage thing or something. They like the house. It's very pretty.
Yeah, it's nice. It's not particularly unique though. There's a lot of houses that would even be bigger than like that sort of house.
Yeah.
A lot of stately homes and stuff around the place, and it's clearly not built for conflict. Like it's been rebuilt and stuff over the years.
No
So one of the ones we want to buy when we win the lottery.
I live in it. I like the idea of living in the north of anywhere, away from a lot of people, but in a nice house that's large.
Yeah, as long as we get a glass fiber set there, it'll be fine.
We were talking about Erskines. They had a castle, got like taken sometimes. Sometimes it got back to them. They hated it. They wanted a chateau. Now we have a chateau. The family tore down the castle instead of preserving it, which did happen sometimes. I know this because we were in a castle yesterday.
We were in Stirling.
Yes, Stirling Castle. So not everybody was like, I hate these castles. I want them to go. But the assholes were. We got stupid houses. Just kidding. That house is nice. At some point, David Erskine, the 13th Laird of Dunn. Laird is like a title that someone in this room knows what that means more than I do.
Lord. It's just
Cool.
the Scottish way to spell Lord.
I could have looked that up, but I knew this would be a good bit.
You don't even need to look it up. It's just the way that you would say Lord in like a heavy Scottish accent. Laird.
Laird.
Yeah.
I like that. I was like looking at it. I was like, the bit will be made out of this because it's probably going to have a rich and complicated history. But the opposite happened. David Erskine, 13th Laird of Dunn, hired famous architect William Adden, as well as his cousin or something, John Erskine, because apparently he was like, I want to help. And they designed a new property, and ground was broken in 1730. The Georgian Mansion country house took 13 years to build. Georgian Mansion being an architectural term for those who know what that means. Because Adams, the architect, really wanted to put some crazy fucking detail into stuff. There's an anecdote that shows up on like every website talking about the mansion where the plaster work in the salon took up a majority of these 13 years. Shouts to Joseph Enzer, the artist behind that. And every article is like, the plasterwork is very fine and took so long. They did a lot to the plasterwork in the salon. Everybody loves the plasterwork in the salon. The estate belonged to the Erskines until 1947, when Millicent Lovett, née Erskine, the 21st Laird of Dunn, leased the property out to be run as a hotel. Haunting alert. I say that because a lot of hotels are haunted for a reason I'll get to in a sec. Which, it kind of was until 1985. Some articles also claim that the estate was used as a hospital for a few of the world wars, maybe 2 of them, but I couldn't find enough information to, like, actually back that up. It kind of felt anecdotal when I read it in a couple articles. People were, like, equating the hauntings to, like, victims of the war that died in the hospital in a way that, like, ghost stories often kind of make up a backstory to help justify the ghost, and so I didn't really know if that were true or not. But it might have been. At this point, though, the National Trust, not the UNSCO, for Scotland wanted to restore the property as like a museum-y building, and that project was finished in 1989.
What's the UNSCO?
Like a World Heritage Foundation.
UNESCO.
UNESCO, yeah.
Yeah,
I was just saying it out loud.
Yeah.
Or fully acronymical.
Initialism. You were saying an initialism.
That's a good word.
I was saying an acronym.
UNESCO.
Acronyms are usually out. Like scuba.
Scuba.
Yeah.
UNESCO. I don't think I've heard people say the word out loud. I always read it.
Yeah, for UNESCO World
In
Heritage
Germany,
Site.
it's more common, I think. It's like you hear about it when people donate to UNESCO a lot.
Yeah.
I think America's more of a country where you donate to the like National Child Health Trust or whatever.
We don't have a lot of heritage sites though. Like y'all have way more than we do.
Yeah. Also, I guess you have been like fighting with those guys a little bit.
A little bit. I don't think we like preserving things. I think we like making
No,
suburbs.
this was like former president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Oh, you're right.
He got like the whole big thing with that guy with the UNESCO. I don't even know what it was about. It was one of the. It blurred into the background there.
I think, yeah, I'm not gonna like talk about it in detail because I don't know all the information, but I vaguely remember that being a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I can't remember what it was over though.
Like I don't know.
He
This
wanted to buy
site.
Iceland at one point, or Greenland. I think it was Greenland. Don't think it was that though.
Yeah.
There was something like
it was
that.
like relatively close to the end, I guess. Like I know that after it was like they did something. It's really hard to remember, to be honest.
Final
I'm
art.
actually gonna Google this because it bothers me. Because like, I remember when I was in I was like in a grocery line when I read about it, so it's just vividly in my brain.
Doing it up. We were at a World Heritage Site a couple months ago at Zollverein in Essen. This is just me talking while Zuma's looking stuff up. Zollverein is an old mining plant in Essen. It's very neat. If you ever visit the Nordrhein-Westfalen area, check that out because it's neat.
Oh, you know,
looking.
just completely withdrew membership from it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, like and funding and stuff. Yeah, yeah. It's because they were biased against American sites. No, I don't know.
I feel like because
Might
it was
be.
like an international collaborative
Yeah.
thing, and Trump was like,
Didn't
I
know.
think I want America to have an isolationist thing if I can help it.
Yeah.
Not like that was his intention. I just think it would have accidentally happened. At this point, though, the National Trust for Scotland wanted to restore the property as like a sort of like heritage site that wasn't a museum, but like fundamentally functioned as a museum. People can tour it if they want, but it's not like anybody lives there now or visits there now. And to be fair, actually, I'll get to this in a second, but a lot of the ghost sightings come from the manager itself, not from like people visiting, because obviously not a lot of people are visiting these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, that project was finished in 1989, and that's where we are today. It's pretty. You got rooms, you got a garden, house.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds like one of those. It's not something I've ever heard of before. We've got lots of bigger palaces and stuff that I guess people would visit, like the Palace of Scone. So yeah, this I guess is just a little local one that maybe local people take tourists to or whatever, but otherwise
Yeah.
it's kind of.
It's not high on like an international tourist
Yeah.
to-do list, I imagine.
No, exactly. So
Not for naught. Are there any like high tourist attractions that you know off the top of your head that are also like, and I'm doing air quotes here, air quotes haunted?
Yeah, I mean Stirling and Edinburgh Castle have both got legends.
Stirling's got one?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean you
Ooh.
can try and Google it.
I will actually after this.
It's like a lady in white. I think that's the Stirling one.
That might be this one. That Lady in White's a common one though.
Yeah.
They're like a Lady in White in every other castle.
Yeah, Ghosts of Stirling Castle is the name of a web page. The Ghost of the Green Lady is the most famous ghost at Stirling Castle. Yeah, there's a pink lady as well. So I think
Ooh, that's rare.
it's like Reservoir Dogs with ladies. It's just different colours of ladies.
It's like, wait, what's a show where everybody... Oh, it's like the wizards and Tolkien lore. Like, there's a colored wizard of all sorts. I'm going to rephrase that to sound way less racist. There's wizards of various colors. There's always
Hues.
ladies of various hues.
That's a nice neutral term.
I like that.
Yeah, so I think most of the castles, the bigger castles, have got something. Stirling and Edinburgh are both big castles with extremely long histories, with lots of dead people in battles. So, I mean, Edinburgh itself has monstrous amounts of ghost stories. You can go on ghost tours around Edinburgh.
Okay.
And stuff, because you've got all the Burke and Hare stuff and all the plague stuff in Edinburgh. It's just, yeah, so there's loads of that. Yeah, it's not uncommon to find ghost stories. It's a good place for a ghost story, I think. So they've got history, they're kind of creepy. Yeah, it's like an abandoned asylum. they just generate ghost stories.
Yeah. We had one of this very first Foxxo Esoterica episode involves an abandoned asylum, which was arguably the least haunted place on that list. But that's very easy to get folkloric about.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do an episode on it in the future. Everybody, keep a weather eye for that. But yeah, we're getting the ghost section now, and here are the ghosts at the House of Dunn. I've already talked about the Headless Horseman, perhaps cuckold boy. Who knows? But regardless or not, whether the cuckoldry story is real, people will see like a white stallion, black cloaked dude with no head chasing your car. If I didn't mention it earlier, I don't think the Headless Horseman here attacks people like in some counterparts with a whip or a pumpkin head. He'll chase your car, but like no story of a ghostly attack has ever been recorded. Mm-hmm. And much like Ewing, that I mentioned earlier, the Headless Man, it'll just like chase your car for like a couple seconds, and a lot of the sightings are like mid 20th century. They probably happen nowadays, but if they do, I did not find anything about it. Like it's not like a decided event happened on the property to stop ghosts from happening, unless you count the invention of the cell phone. But like,
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and the one part of this story is that I don't think a lot of people are up here in the first place, and the people who are up there in the first place aren't gonna like go to the ghost hunting forums.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah.
But yeah, he'll chase your car, and do that for a little bit. I read a specific anecdote, though, about old people in the area avoiding the road specifically out of the legend. Like, a lot of people were writing, where it's like, I heard about this when I was growing up, and I don't want to deal with it, so I'm not going to drive down this stretch of road. Which, now that I've driven around Scotland Road, it's going to add, like, an hour to your trip. How do you, like, avoid going down a stretch of road?
Yeah, it's not as bad in Angus. I mean, we were up in the Highlands. Angus is more, I mean, it's a series of connected villages and stuff. There's no big mountains to get around or anything, but, yeah, I think it's quite quaint and adorable, like, old people being like, oh, I just don't go down that road because there's a ghost. Yeah. Somebody told me 50 years ago. Yeah, it's kind of charming. Because you'd be like, yeah, whatever, Grandma. Yeah, at least you're not being racist.
Yeah, right. It's better to have, like, that kind of prejudice.
I love superstitious grandmas. Racist grandmas. I don't know if you're welcome to this podcast anymore. I don't think you should listen. I do find that always cute, though. Like, I feel like that sort of superstition that carries on is always neat. Fun anecdote. I don't think I've ever brought it up on the podcast, but, like, apparently in my family, on my mom's side, I had a great-great-grandma, and her name was Anne Erickson. And when she died and was dying and on her deathbed and stuff, she was like, if you don't name the daughter of everybody in this family after me, I'll come back. And then she passed away. And so ever since she did that, every single woman in my mom's side of the family has the middle name of Anne, including my sister, Megan Ann Sargent, because we don't want a ghost, I guess.
That's great. So
that's always fun. I always like that one.
Your great grand's a dick.
Yeah. I think my aunt had a daughter and didn't do it, so I haven't been chatting with her for a while, but so we'll see what happens.
That's great.
Yeah, I always love that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Other ghosts on the property, though, we have the Lady of Dunn, who I talked about earlier. Ladies with the various hues. She's a lady ghost, and I think she is reported as being very nonchalant. Like, not a poltergeist where she's flipping tables over and stuff, but definitely not a residual ghost, which is like the type of ghost that replays their death scene over and over again. Like, she's just a spirit who's vibing, having a good time. I don't think I mentioned this book before, because the author only gives a one-paragraph account on the House of Dunn, but in 1848, the book The Night Side of Nature, written by Catherine Crowe, is the first account of a haunting-type thing being written about this estate in particular. And at this point in time, the House of Dunn is up. It is no longer a castle. But the book is in the public domain, so I'm going to read it. The little section. Not very long since, a gentleman set out, one fine midsummer's evening, when it is light at night in Scotland, to walk from Montrose to Brecon. As he approached a place called Dunn, he observed a lady walking on before, which, from the lateness of the hour, somewhat surprised him. Some time afterward, he was found by the early labourers lying on the ground near the churchyard, in a state of insensibility. All he could tell them was, that he had followed this lady till she had turned her head and looked round at him, when, seized with horror, he had fainted. "Oh," said they, "you have seen the Lady of Dunn." "What is this legend attached to the Lady of Dunn?" "I do not know." And then the author doesn't talk about it ever again.
Oh.
She's just like, I heard a legend about it with some laborers. Who knows?
Sounds like he got drunk.
It could have been.
Yeah, yeah.
But the laborers know what's up, and laborers never drink. Anybody wrote about the color of her dress specifically, especially not Catherine Crowe, who wrote that little section. So it's not like we have a moniker a la the Green Lady, the White Lady. Plot twist though, a nicely dressed lady is sometimes said to also be on horseback, usually facing backwards on her horse, which is weird, before disappearing. So we got like 2 horseback spirits going on here? What's up with that? She does, however, have her head. Head's on. It's on her body.
Can they interact like the horse?
I don't think they've met each other as far as people could tell.
The ghosts?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
I mean, like, they probably interact in their own time, but when they're, like, hanging out with the mortals, I don't think they're... I think they can only do it one at a time.
Let's see. Yeah.
Also, the person who I'll talk about, and I keep alluding to, describes a floating dress, like, on the property. Like, it floats down the halls and then disappears. So maybe this is attached to her. However, I think, like, none of the articles mention a color of dress or a color of her, like, title, so it could be anything. It's not like we have a white lady trope where we have, like, a widow or something. Because a lot of the white ladies are widows or people who have lost their children, and that's why they're ghosts. Like, if you have, like, a white lady legend, that's an archetype of ghost.
Cool.
This person probably isn't that. Yeah. Violet Augusta Mary Frederica Kennedy Erskine, a.k.a. Violet Jacob, who shortened her name, thank goodness, was a member of the family who was also a poet and a writer, writing about the family's history in her 1931 book, The Lairds of Dunn. I was talking about this earlier. She also brings up ghosts a bit, but she doesn't believe them. She does write about a few ghostly anecdotes despite that. She mentions neither monk nor white lady are seen on the property, so, like, she recognizes the white lady as something attached to the property, and it's the only case of, like, that trope being adopted to this ghost, but this is also being written by somebody who doesn't believe in ghosts in the first place, so, like, who's to say what to make of that? She does mention a branch falling from a yew tree and killing a laird, and she also mentions an account of twins being born, but one of them being cursed and having a sickly black leg. She also did write about a duel which occurred for real. This is out of order, so forgive me. It didn't involve adultery. It also didn't end up with anybody dying. It was a dispute about a birth. Content warning, miscarriages will be referred to in this story. They didn't know that the woman's child died naturally in childbirth, and so one of the sides of the duel, like the members of the duel were like, I think you had an abortion. And the other dude was like, my wife didn't have an abortion. And they had a duel over it because at this point in time, people were like, that's a sin. I don't like this. But neither of the members of the duel ended up killing each other. So it kind of just got resolved, and they decided not to put anybody in prison.
Cool.
Moving on, though, I think the last weird death that she wrote about, Violet Jacob, was involved an heir, John Erskine, and his brother Alexander, being poisoned by their uncle, Robert Erskine, not the first, for the inheritance. Just classic Game of Thrones stuff. I'm going to poison this dude and get his money. Alex survived, though, and then executed his uncle. So, reversal. I did not read her full thing. I also don't know if anybody was beheaded, because if anybody was beheaded, it'd be pretty easy to see where the Headless Ghost comes from. But it deals with anecdotes about Erskine family members, their military careers, and the fact that a lot of the records are lost because of the aforementioned raids with the whole Presbyterian thing going on. Mm-hmm. Clan Erskine was really, really in touch with the monarchy, though, so if something major happened in Scotland historically, the family was there. Which in ghost speak means that there are a lot of unresolved, mysterious, and ghost-worthy deaths if you're, like, into that sort of thing. Like, any of the characters from Game of Thrones, if they die, they could be a ghost. That makes sense.
Yeah. You got unfinished business.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of the
Classic
royals.
ghost thing, I suppose.
Being royal. If you're a poor ghost, you're probably not suffering enough. You go to the afterlife like a normal man.
Poor Yanni, though.
Yanni Janssen.
Oh no, not Yanni Janssen.
I don't know if you listened, but I actually did an episode on him.
I know. I don't think I heard that one.
That was
an early one.
It was the earlier one. It's
Yeah.
the Sunnyvale Toys R Us.
Yeah.
Yanni Janssen.
Honestly, I say this every time I hear about the story, but like, the funniest thing about that is that it could actually have just been
Johnny Johnson.
It's so stupid.
He was illiterate, so who knows?
Yeah. And not even that, but like the letter J is just often Y in certain languages, namely German. Poor ghosts, if you're listening to this podcast, I think you're valid. I don't think you need to have a lot of money or a lot of heritage to be a ghost. I think you could be like me and have $200 and pass away. I think that's enough. I think that's enough trauma to justify ghosthood.
Do you want ghosthood?
No, I just think I want to be worthy of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, I definitely, it sounds like horrible. Don't want to have to deal with it. But it'd be like the bragging rights. I think I'd be a ghost if I died. I think that's bragging rights. You have any thoughts on any anecdotes before I jump in once more?
I don't have any anecdotes because I wasn't there.
Or maybe in like illuminations. That's a better word.
Well, it's tough, you know. I'm not sure.
Cool. That's fair.
Yeah, they're kind of not. They're not very specific legends.
Yeah.
And there's not many details on them, so it's hard to really pick
So
them
that
apart.
reason,
Or
it's like
not, or...
again, it's like the classic type of rural folklore, I guess, where it's like, I mean, you said yourself, you kind of had to dive into the blogs for this one.
Yeah.
So, like, following it could have been like a travel blog or something. It's like somebody just doing a little, you know, like, no, it's like, I'm not saying that's what I want, I'm just saying, like, travel thing you're going to put in your student exchange.
Yeah,
blog.
like you hear something once
Yeah,
and it's
like,
like,
oh,
I'm going to talk
those-
about this for a
It's
while.
like, oh yeah, they got this free thing here, it's crazy, yeah.
I do. If I like bring up something that I've only read about once, I like to point that out because usually it's like trickier to trust. But a lot of times, there's a couple of like blogs that I read about the same thing, and either I equate that to them having all done their research well, woohoo, or they're doing like the Stoll Cemetery effect, where people are making stuff up and everybody's parroting the things that are made up.
Yeah.
Stoll Cemetery, for you who don't know, is a cemetery in Kansas that everyone thinks is like the most haunted place of all time because a lot of people kept writing about it having like the devil's child buried there and a bunch of priests and a church burned down, and then like the more that people came up with these stories and put them online, it snowballed into like the most mundane cemetery of all time being a place where you go to hell.
Yeah.
And that's, I like to call it the Stoll Cemetery effect because there's no way it's real. A podcast that was also not really ghosty but talked about it once is My Favorite Murder. And I think they're doing a live episode, and one of the ghosts was telling about Stoll Cemetery, and the more she was like saying it out loud, she was like, "Oh yeah, this is a horrible story. This one sucks." It was very funny to witness. But yeah, I feel like that sort of thing happens if you fall into like the stereotype trope type stuff, and the fact that a lot of this is like records that the family member kept lining up with deaths and stuff is why this one makes more sense to me, because like it's like it deliberately avoids the lady in white. The dude who threw a baby off, and now I'm sad because I threw my baby off a bridge. Like, that kind of thing. A lot of the stuff that happens here is very specific to the location and very unique, which is why I think it's neat. But other type stuff is also happening. There's a lot of ghosts here. And I've been talking about her. I kept alluding to her like 5,000 times. But Mary Brownlow, the manager of the house since 2010, reports a lot of the things. But most often, she hears a couple of specific stuff. She hears a baby crying when there is no baby in the house. She hears a telephone ringing in rooms where there is no telephone. This is commonly reported, actually, by a lot of people who are able to visit the house, which doesn't happen often, but if people report ghost like type stuff, they're like, I heard a telephone ring in rooms where there are no telephone, which is like mundane, but like weirdly specific that it's consistent. Especially since like medieval ghosts or Renaissance ghosts don't feel like they should know how a telephone works. So that's weird. Although I guess the place was a hotel at one point. She also definitely reports seeing the white floating dress as in addition to Catherine Crowe. But she also sees a spectral white figure, sometimes in a bonnet, who's like not dressed in stately noble attire, but like a normal peasant type attire thing going on.
Yeah.
And then she'll also hear ethereal harp music sometimes, which is interesting. A ghost investigation that I found in a report written by Derek Green, which is a news source that I didn't talk about yet, talks about seeing a spirit of a little girl as well as the spirit of an early 20th century gentleman, as well as, the standard stuff that happens in ghost investigations where, the temperature's dropping, I hear weird noises and ghost stuff, and my EMP is picking up stuff. Their website didn't have any pictures and stuff, but the fact that, they went and investigated and actually saw a couple apparitions without getting the pictures is neat. You could lie, but, why would you?
Because you're running a website?
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's a lot of reasons.
You're correct. Much like with our Headless Horseman friend Ewan from earlier, this place also has an odd black dog sighting where people will see a dog in the halls roaming, a large black dog, which is a big British Isles ghost thing. Because obviously a dog could have gotten in the property, but if it happens enough and it's ghostly and large with red burning eyes, you're maybe ghost? The black dog is an interesting figure that I would love to tackle in an episode, because that one's crazy.
Isn't that something Churchill made up? It's
I feel like
version.
No.
No, it also is. It's a jokey joke.
I'll have to look it up before I decide to leave it in the podcast.
Okay.
Feels racist.
No.
I don't know what you're referring to, and I gotta tread with caution.
He called his depression the black dog.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's not racist.
No.
Go Churchill.
Well, no.
No, he was extremely racist.
Well,
not about that. Though.
not about that.
No.
Okay. So go Churchill for the mental health stuff. Churchill, fuck you for the racism. Get out of here. And that's where I'm leaning on this. It is to be noted, though, that the spectral spirit of the black dog was not spited with the horseman. Not at the horseman's side. I don't know. Do y'all have an opinion on the black dog as a narrative figure?
Well, I like it from the angle of plausibility, because it's a black dog, right? It could just run into the house.
Yeah.
So if people get up at night, half asleep to grab water, and they see a massive dog walking through the house, of course it's gonna be spooky, and they're probably not gonna investigate, because even sure. Maybe they think it's a ghost dog, but if it's a real dog, it's also going to kill them. So, there's fear in either way, and it's it's a very compelling, I guess.
Yeah, it happens a lot in specifically the British Isles in terms of legends. Yeah. I'll do an episode on it, but it's even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was let's make a Sherlock Holmes story about it, bada bing, bada boom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was from Edinburgh.
Oh, he was.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
thought he was a London bloke.
No, it's just because the stories were set in London.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, the black dog, I don't know. It kind of raises the broader point of legends being sort of culturally specific. And I'm would you not have black dogs everywhere if they were a thing?
It doesn't happen that much in America.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically...
And Germany's got werewolves.
Basically just British. If there's black dog ghosts, why aren't they appearing in America?
Yeah. It might... There's a degree of the folkloric element of it leading into it. If you see a black dog, you'd be I remember my grandma telling me about a black dog, and your mind goes there. As opposed to in Germany, it's I remember my grandma telling me about a werewolf, or in America, where I remember my grandma telling me about the Michigan dog man.
Yeah.
So there's
your grandma
that.
wouldn't be able to tell you that because the story was made up in the 90s.
70s.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Isn't this song from the 90s?
No, 70.
The Michigan dog man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the song's called The Legend of 97.
Well, that's the version that he put out in 97. He re-recorded the song.
Didn't you re-record the song for 2007?
He did it a bunch. Steve Cook, legend. Love that dude. He re-recorded that song 4 times.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just one recording. Interesting.
Nope. The Michigan Dog Man. Check out that episode. One of my faves. I think maybe the horniest.
Yeah. His voyeuristic daughter.
I love that dude, and I've seen him. But yeah, there's always a dog legend, depending on where you are, but the folklore of it leads into what it is, which I guess is kind of me being a little bit of a devil's advocate for that sort of thing, but maybe I'm not. Maybe people are seeing area-specific things, and the spirits are manifesting in a way they feel is great, so now I'm the angel's advocate.
Yeah.
Go surreal. But yeah. That is the reports I could find on the hauntings in the house itself, those various different sightings. at this current point in time, there aren't a lot of people coming and going from the property just because it belongs to the trust and isn't a hotel anymore. So a lot of the reports come from the house manager specifically, and then the people that are very rarely invited in. And obviously, not everybody's going to see a ghost when they come in, because that just doesn't happen. It's very hard for like every single person to get a ghostly encounter from something. So it's like, now that less people come in there, there's not a lot of modern sightings of anything. I still think it's neat that the manager, whose name is Mary Brunlow, still gets stuff to this day, and like we'll talk to ghost people about it, because ghost people are gonna badger her about it every day. But yeah, I feel like more people should have reported stuff in the hotel era, but I guess they didn't. That's a devil's advocate moment.
True. Yeah, and we don't know anything about the manager really. She could be mental, or
maybe
But just you wanted to get up the hotel, right?
yeah, or attention.
Well, that's not like it's a hotel now.
No,
like, it's
she
just a
could
property.
Just want attention, or
That's
she
true.
could just. I mean, yeah, she could just be into it and liable
Yeah, she
to
could
seeing
believe
crap.
it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not necessarily cynical. Yeah, but she has a single point of source, which is obviously not good.
Not like a single one, but definitely the major one.
Yeah.
Because more, it's not like she's the only one who's seeing ghosts.
No. Yeah, but yeah, when it was a hotel, yeah, there'd be a lot more people about, but yeah, who knows?
That's my devil's advocate moment.
Yeah.
Unrelated, before we get to the conclusions, there is a brand of whiskey named Bowmore, and I think they have a Headless Horseman on their label. It's neat. I think there's a story attached to it where a crofter, Lachlan Bond, sees a Headless Horseman ride away from his place, only to discover that the dude left behind a dram of whiskey. He's like, that's a good gift. Here for it. The story's passed off as real, but it's probably apocryphal to sell the whiskey. I think it's neat. I liked that story.
How's a Headless Horseman going to drink whiskey?
That's why. He probably was like, I would drink this if I could.
But why would he
you know
have
who
those?
wants this? A crofter.
Yes. No, yeah, that's fun. I was like an apocryphal brand story.
If anybody like has a deep lore to their product, I'll buy it. I think I saw a coffee company at one point based on the Mothman, and I didn't buy it because I'm poor, but I'm close to. Yeah, that's the story of the Headless Horseman and the House of Dunn. So I think we have two things to talk about. Is the Headless Horseman real? No. I'll say it. Maybe like the House of Dunn would be the most realistic one, but there's no Headless Horseman for real outside of maybe ghosts. I don't think it's a real legend. Like, it's always just a legend folkloric piece, but I'm cool enough to admit that it's not real. Washington Irving is not making a real story. It's a captivating and wonderful legend, though, and I love it a lot. I don't think it's one of those cases where like somebody's ripping off somebody and being like, this is coming from this legend, this is coming from this legend. As much as like people are coming up with stories and being like, you know what looks cool immediately? Headless Horseman. And like people across the cultures are just gonna come up to that conclusion and just immediately be like, this is a cool figure for my horror story. I think that's neat.
It's a cool symbol. It might have something symbolic about it. Don't really know, but it's just a cool sort of image. Yeah. It's a bit like dragons, I guess. They like pop up across different cultures because it's just like humans aren't that imaginative overall, and we're just like, do you want to be cool, like a big scaly thing that like flew and breathed fire.
Find like the find like bones of dinosaurs or whatever, and it's gonna look like
some sort of dragony thing. So you've got it's like convergent evolution, but for
another cool looking thing.
It's convergent evolution, but instead of evolution, it's like the genesis of stories, and that it's just because stories have something similar in common doesn't mean that they're both true. It just means that the people who wrote them were similarly not very imaginative. So it's kind of like that, I guess. But it's cool. It is a cool symbol. I can see why it comes up. It's a good image.
And obviously ever since Sleepy Hollow, like it's gonna come up with like a lot more in media, but now it's gonna be directly related to Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like 80 movies and 70 TV shows.
It's a good one though.
Yeah, I do think the house is haunted. Like it has to be.
It's not even that old.
The house isn't old, but the property.
Every property's old.
But the house is also old. Now I'm backtracking.
But
It's 300 years old.
The land got made 4.5 billion years ago, like every other bit of land.
Like if American house, okay. So
You mean there's been human
new point,
activity on it?
New point now. Like this is a 300-year-old building. Like it's not young. There's some newer American buildings that are haunted.
Well,
Bada boom.
I like
New point.
where are your sources for those buildings being haunted?
Anyway, the Toys R Us.
Yeah.
Fucking Yanni.
Yanni Janssen.
No, yeah.
That's the connection corner for this episode. Yanni Janssen.
Yeah.
I think if I'm gonna be like a place is haunted, I don't think I have come to a philosophical conclusion as to what makes a ghost, but I feel like with a very large family specific presence being in control of the property for like a millennia, like something in that will happen to cause enough metaphysical turmoil or whatever to spawn a ghost. Like in some places where you have like an old property that was like Billy was here in the 1300s, but then the next year Sarah's family was there, and it's different now. It's a different case as opposed to like a property that the building itself changed, but the family in charge of it was the same. And I feel like that is enough of a connecting factor to like have any metaphysical ghost stuff from the castle feed into the house nowadays, if that makes sense. Doesn't have to.
I like the mental gymnastics you're doing.
Thank you.
That's impressive.
I'll take it as a compliment.
yeah, that's fine. You can do that. Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, yeah, I'll see footage that's alleged to be ghosts and not believe it. So without even footage, it's very difficult to convince a non-believer.
That's fair.
Of anything, yeah.
This isn't like the most ghosty place I've ever
thought
about.
It isn't where you would go to if you were trying to prove ghosts.
Yeah, a lot of the ghost activity here, besides the Headless Horseman chasing you, is like people hanging out and having a good time. Like nobody's doing poltergeist stuff and nobody's replaying their tragic scene of death. A lot of the ghosts, air quotes, at this property are just hanging out, playing their music.
It's like The Shining.
Yeah,
they're just chilling. Yeah, not hurting anyone.
Shining. Oh, I want to do that because the hotel that The Shining is based on is haunted for real. That'd be a good episode.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, you could do that one.
Yeah. That's good. I like The Shining.
The hotel it was filmed at, or the hotel it was based?
The hotel it was filmed at. And based on.
Okay. Yeah.
I think both.
Yeah.
Stephen King was like, I love this hotel a bunch. I'm gonna make a story about it. And then, what the fuck is his name? Kubrick. Yeah. Came in and was like, well, I'm Kubrick. I'll make sure the hotel that he based it on is a part of it. And also make sure Stephen King's car gets crashed. Because I think this is a whole story unrelated to this. But Stephen King and Stanley Kubrick were not fans of each other. And a lot of things happened in The Shining that were directly spiteful against Stephen King. And I think it's very funny. That's for another episode, though. Look into it, though, if you're feeling curious. I have to pee.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think I can hold out for like 5 more seconds of conclusions before we end abruptly. I've got all my notes done. That's the other thing I was going to talk about was the fact that it was a hotel at a point and not a lot of people report ghosts is a very big nail in the coffin. And I will not die on the hill that this place is haunted because of many reasons, but that being the major one where like people are in the hotel and they're not reporting ghosts, which is especially damning considering hotels are very haunted places in ghost lore and stuff because a lot of people are traveling there. A lot of people are being there and sometimes people die in hotels. And like a place of like liminal space in between in between two places where you're staying in a hotel is an energy that summons ghosts in some circles of thought. So the fact that the hotel aspect of it is the weakest ghost part of this is a very damning piece of evidence.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
But I like the history part, and I think that it can feed into a ghost. And I like that the fact that the person there, who is the sole person in charge of it, is kind of like, I'm seeing things, and I'm going to reach out to the ghost people because they're what this is about. And I think that that's an interesting angle of plot that Mary she sought out the ghost people.
Yeah, that's fun. That's always fun to have people engage with. Yeah, I hope she knew what she was getting into.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it didn't take off that much. It doesn't have a Wikipedia page.
That's true. Yeah, without a Wikipedia page, it's the death of a thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Anybody have any concluding thoughts?
Not really, no. It's a haunted hotel. It's a classic, right?
It's a house now.
Everybody wants one of those. Well, yeah, but
Don't
talk about, like, I don't know, like, it's not a haunted empty warehouse, it's a haunted Toys R Us, even though Toys R Us doesn't exist anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't haunted when it was a hotel.
Wait, when did the person die that haunted it?
Now it's like a historical
long time
house.
Yeah, a long time ago. Like, it sort of must have been haunted when it was a hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they could also have stories about it. Like, it's not like people saw a ghost and immediately went to write about it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well.
But yeah, it's a fun one. It wouldn't be that hard to visit from here. I don't think it will.
It sounds out of the way.
It's somewhat out of the way. It's like an hour and a bit away, yeah. But yeah, it's just an old house, and we got plenty of
like a bunch of those.
like National Cross houses. Yeah, they're not scarce.
Foxxo Esoterica behind the scenes. I think Tiger here, Zipeau, was like, I have a couple ideas for you to do the episode on, and I loved them a lot. And then I was like, I have to do one you've never heard of.
Yeah,
has to be a surprise. So maybe those will come in the future. They sounded fun.
Yeah. But yeah, we got lots of stories.
Scotland's fun. It's got a lot of ghosts. Thank you so much for being on the podcast this evening, you two. It's been an absolute lovely little episode.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been great. Been fun.
Yeah. Had a great little time.
Thank you all, my lovely audience, for once again attending the Foxhole for a tale or two. Actually, just one tale, and it's raised. Getting demonetized doesn't scare me. Once again, though, thank you all for being very patient during this surprise and impromptu hiatus. I'll certainly endeavor to get more episodes out more regularly from here on out. I still may only do one in February, but we'll certainly see, depending on how smooth the moving process goes and what general life stuff looks like. All that aside, though, let's get to the review corner. And this review corner is going to be on the House of Dunn itself, and the Montrose Basin Nature Preserve attached to it. Lee Madden writes, such a beautiful and friendly place to discover, and the fact that dogs can go almost anywhere except the main house makes the visit even more special. 5 stars. Claire Booth writes, really interesting guided tour throughout the house by knowledgeable and friendly guides. Lovely food in the cafe with very friendly waiters and waitresses. Pleasant walks in the grounds, especially to the old walled gardens. 5 stars. Apparently there's a cafe there, and it's good, and it's not triggering my Pavlovian response to crave coffee. It's too late for coffee. Betty Wilcox writes, food good, but the cafe was very cold. 4 stars. And last but not least, John Jones writes, awesome place. The snowdrops were outstanding. The scones were just magical. A day out to remember. 5 stars. Now that I've read this review corner out loud, actually, I'm only just now realizing I didn't know how open and available the house was to the public. Sure, there are slotted times for tours, but there are also gardens entirely open to the public, as well as a whole cafe and gift shop. So I was wrong. It's not just the house manager on the property the whole time, and there are a steady amount of ghosts with stark too little ghost stories to tell. I suppose the house isn't open at night though, so there's that. I digress. Thanks again to Zuma the Puma and Zippo the Tiger for being such wonderful guests this evening. Everybody give them a round of applause. Thank you. I promise no one watching you in your car or in your home thought it was weird that you started clapping for no reason. Anyway, you can find Foxxo Esoterica on Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, and YouTube. You can also follow me on Twitter at FORSETIFOX, and you can support Foxxo Esoterica on Patreon and Ko-fi at FORSETIFOX for both. Thanks to Sun El Chiquito for the podcast artwork, and everyone, have a good night. And before you head off to sleep this evening, make sure you drink a lot of water. You don't want to wake up with your throat all hoarse.